gives a public notice to the citizens of the states of the Republic, local and state law enforcement agencies, and federal law enforcement and national security agencies. The time has come for the few to stand for the many. For far too long the patriots of this republic have stood by, ever idly, in the hopes that legislative, representative, and executive reforms, which appear to be in the hands of the people, might reverse the centralization of power that has continued for over 150 years at all levels of government. A reasonable witness to the progression of this centralization must arrive at the conclusion that, thus far, such efforts are a failure, and can only be shown to have helped further the agenda of would-be tyrants by allowing them time to accomplish their goals. The most outrageous of their crimes, which presuppose and supersede all others, are the circumvention and subversion of the Constitution and Bill of Rights, the specific targeting of American citizens of the several states without due process, and the unauthorized transfer of the sovereignty of the American people to foreign international governing bodies. These cases constitute acts of treason of the highest order, and must be prosecuted to their fullest and most vigilant extent by the people. In the meantime, while the people become more aware of the true intentions of the government their forefathers instituted to protect their liberties, the men and women of Operation Mutual Aid are now prepared to stand between the law-abiding, peaceful citizens of the states, and any and all governmental authorities that would infringe upon their God-given, inalienable rights, in order to promote a tyrannical and infamous agenda most citizens are not aware of. Such infringements might include, but are not limited to, confiscation of private property without due process of constitutional law, especially when violating a citizen's Second Amendment rights, rights granted by a higher authority than government, and codified in the Bill of Rights. Imprisonment, or otherwise restriction of an individual's freedom for reasons unwarranted, or in violation of that citizen's God-given liberties, and exercising an authority not granted to the government by the Constitution. Thievery of private lands, placing them under federal domain, while pursuing United Nations Agenda 21, a blatant and unconstitutional violation of the sovereignty of the citizens of these states. Any violations of the natural and obvious rights that a free people possess from birth, and are listed, but not limited within the Bill of Rights. To local law enforcement personnel and administrators, you have been fooled. This is a shame, but should you attempt to physically prevent the volunteers of Operation Mutual Aid from completing their mission, you cannot be excused for ignorance as to what your real duties are, nor for service to a government that has submitted itself to unjust and unconstitutional outside rule. If you do your research, consider yourself to be a professional public servant, and do not desire to be a lemming of those that would use you to further an agenda of which you are not aware, you will stand aside, or stand with us. If you were truly a dedicated public servant, there would be no need for us to do the job of protecting the people's liberties, for that is your initially declared purpose. This is your initial notice. If Operation Mutual Aid is called to your jurisdiction, your department will be informed before we mobilize, and will be given a final ultimatum upon our arrival. You have ample time to make your decision. To the federal agents and operators, although you have taken an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to not follow unlawful orders, your very service to many of the agencies you work for is neither public service, constitutional, nor lawful. Do your research, think about why you chose to serve, and who you will be taking action against should you be told by your controllers to impede, apprehend, or assault any volunteer of Operation Mutual Aid at any time, before, during, or after an operation. If you confront us during an operation, we will make a final attempt at a reasonable resolve with your conscience and your true duty. However, we will not be disarmed, we will achieve our goal, and we will complete our mission, to the last man or woman. If you apprehend any of us at any time, we will exhaust every one of our considerable resources to free that individual with all vigilance. Know who you really work for, understand who the true enemies of freedom are, and stand beside us, or aside from us. What will your children think when you tell them you killed patriotic American civilians and veterans making a stand for liberty and freedom? We do not desire armed conflict, but your dereliction in your duty to the American people has given us no choice, and many of us are highly trained, combat-proven veterans of war. We fought for you, and in some instances beside you. If you intend to stand against us, we will be forced to acknowledge your treasonous actions, and we will defend ourselves and the citizenry from you at all costs. And finally, to the people, this is your chance to truly make a difference as an individual part of your community, state, and this great republic. You need to know your rights, fight for them, and secure them for future generations. Freedom is not free, nor is it hereditary. It is paid for with the blood of over 1,400,000 Americans that believe they fought and died for you to pursue the great experiment of self-governance. But their sacrifice is only a beginning, for to secure liberty and freedom for ourselves and our children requires vigilance, determination, and a virtuous populace. Let's begin to be the men and women we should be, rather than talk about who we want to be. The only way our physical defense of your liberties can be fruitful is for each of you to carry the torch once it is passed. Together, focusing on our own communities, we can ride the ship and benefit the greater good. Our children are watching from the hindsight of the future. What will they say of our generation? That we couldn't pull ourselves away from the television or computer screen long enough to care about the world in which we live. That we were too preoccupied with sports, movie stars, and recreation to even know what our freedoms are. These distractions will not be legitimate excuses when our progeny considers the dereliction in our duty to ensure freedom for generations to come. They must know that their fathers and brothers, mothers, and sisters made us stand in the face of incredible odds, that we faced the enemies of freedom, and sent them back to the hole from which they crawled. And, when it was over, we kept an ever-watchful, vigilant eye on our freedoms and republican form of government, that no individual or group of individuals could usurp control and misguide her institutions ever again. The choice will be yours, and we intend to make sure you have it. We are the guardians of liberty. We are the great barrier between tyrants and the oppressed. We do not forgive acts of tyranny against a disillusioned populace. We do not forget the sacrifice of millions before us to secure freedom. Our discerning eye is now a swift sword. Expect us.